Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Health Freedom Iowa Live. Tonight we have Oliver Bardwell joining us. Oliver is the founder of Iowans for Freedom. He's been doing a lot of work lately for us and making a lot of headway. He's also the author of the book, The Way, A Small Book of Wisdom, and we will have a link to purchase that book in the comments. So tonight, let's just talk about Iowans for Freedom and what you guys are doing. So thank you for joining us tonight, Oliver.
Thank you for having me, Erica. And Ayla.
It's Ayla who doesn't want to leave mommy today.
Your co-host, Ayla.
Yes, she loves it. She's an attention hound, that's for sure.
He's the cutest co-host ever.
Thank you.
I noticed at the bottom left-hand corner, it says Carrie on my screen. That's my wife's name. I'm not
okay.
sure. It's not my name, so I don't know why it says that.
It happens. Joni has used this account a bunch of times and it said Erica on it. And
yeah.
I finally changed it to Health Freedom Iowa so that, we don't have that issue anymore.
You'll have to explain to me how to do that in Zoom.
Okay, yeah, I could definitely tell you how to do that.
Another time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's have the interview.
Yes, definitely.
Hello, everyone.
So, yes, welcome, guys. So, can you tell us a little bit about Iowans for Freedom?
Well, we started out as AIR, Advocates for Intelligent Health Regulations, but changed it quickly to Let Them Play Iowa Unmasked. And the reason that we started the group, Let Them Play Iowa Unmasked, is because we were seeing that kids were being masked during sports. I mean, it was a challenge for me watching kids go to school with masks on. And doing what I do, I teach mindfulness and meditation, and I'm really working into that field. I was sitting on the sidelines a little bit. I mean, I definitely read a lot of studies on COVID and on masking and everything. So I had already formed my opinion on it and wasn't wearing one myself, and I haven't been or haven't all year, but I really had a challenge with kids having to wear a mask while they were trying to breathe and exercise. And I knew that how dangerous that was. And I read some more studies about that as well and talked to a few doctors and a pulmonologist about it. So we started, well, first of all, I called our superintendent and he kind of made it seem like I was the only person that was concerned. Mm-hmm. And I talked to a couple other parents and that wasn't the case. Other parents had called. And so then I talked to the Iowa Department of Public Health, the Dallas County Department of Public Health, the governor's office, and I found that nobody in the Iowa High School Athletic Association, I found that nobody was recommending in Iowa that kids be wearing masks while exercising. So they weren't taking direction from somebody. And then I talked to, I found that I talked to the other ADs, myself and someone else from our group reached out and called and talked to the other ADs in our conference. And we found that we were only one of two schools doing that. Oh, wow. So I took all the data, a group of parents came, we went and spoke at a school board meeting. And what we found was that the superintendent was the only one speaking. And we presented all the data in what I thought was a fantastic argument, and other folks did as well. And what it resulted in was the administration telling coaches, hey, don't be mask Nazis, let the kids pull them down if they need to breathe or whatever, but they didn't change the policy. Crazy. And that was a little concerning that we had elected officials that weren't listening to us. Mm-hmm. The unelected administrator was making all the decisions, and they weren't based on science or on direction from our public health department. Right. So that's when we formed Let Them Play Iowa Unmasked, and we thought it would be better if we had a bigger group that was more cohesive that could tackle that. And I had an issue with the Iowa Soccer Association. They were doing the same thing. They were mandating masks during indoor soccer. So a lot of the complexes were following that. I usually sign up two teams a session to Sportsplex West, and they were not budging on making kids wear masks. I mean, you have kids coming off the field that can barely breathe. trying to catch their breath. And
Dangerous.
so that's kind of how we got into the fight. And then as we progressed, with hundreds of people calling the governor's office and emailing, we went to the rally in January at the Capitol. Um, and, we were just drawn into this community of trying to stand up for our kids' freedoms. That's kind of how it began. And then as things changed, we morphed into Iowans for Freedoms,
Okay.
which has just exploded. I mean, we have hundreds of members waiting to be admitted or to join, and we have moderators vetting all those members, and we hit, I think, 1,000 members early this week.
Awesome. That is awesome.
And since then, I've gone and I spoke at the Judicial Committee hearing early on the vaccine passport ban bill.
Okay.
And I told them, I predicted that if it passed, they would bring in a new form of discrimination, legalized discrimination and segregation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what's happening. That's what we're seeing. So
Right.
I've, been we've had campaigns for that. Sonia Swan, my friend from Iowans for Informed Consent, called me last Sunday or a week ago Sunday and said, "Hey, we need to do something." And I said, "Well, let's do it." And within a day and a half, we worked tirelessly, but we had 230 people at the Capitol.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a great event.
Called, or she didn't call, she texted me, asked me if I could make it out there, knowing it was a long shot. And unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but I was so thrilled to see so many people show up on that short of notice.
Yeah, it was heartwarming. She was in tears. A couple representatives were in tears.
Awesome.
We had Representative Shipley spoke, and Senator Carlin, and a couple of other representatives, and it was an amazing event. And we wrote 140 letters to the governor, and kids were there writing letters. Somebody messaged me afterwards and said that she'd been to all the rallies, and this one felt the most elevated and the most positive. And that's kind of what we want to bring to it, is a little bit of elevation and positivity and inner peace is my goal anyway.
That's good. And we need that. We need that so much. So if people wanted to get involved with you, how would they go about that?
They can ask to join our private group, which is Iowans for Freedom on Facebook. And then we have a public page, Iowans and the number 4 Freedom, which they can like to get updates on, legislation that's coming up or things that happen, like the mask or the education bill with the mask amendment on it. They can email me at Iowans number 4 freedom@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we've got a lot of people reaching out to be a part of it. And every day I'm adding folks to our team.
Awesome.
And we have, we're growing for sure.
Good. That's really good. So let's talk a little bit more about this vaccine passport bill. I know a lot of people think that they're banned now in Iowa, and really there's so many loopholes in it that it's not. And so can you just kind of talk about that a little bit more and explain exactly what is happening with that?
Well, on the surface, it looks great, and it's great publicity for every Republican that voted for it, and some Democrats that voted for it. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually ban vaccine passports. It makes it so, the state can't issue an ID. If you go to the local pub, they can't they can't ask you for your vaccination status or a baseball game or anything like that, which is great. But, they put something on the door that says, some businesses do. It'll say, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're unvaccinated, you need to wear a mask. And that's ridiculous. And then the other thing is, it doesn't protect employees. I mean, you could show up at work and they could say, well, now we're going to mandate the COVID vax for everybody.
And that's happening. I've had a
That's
lot of people
happening.
reach out to me asking, what do I do? I'm going to lose my job in so many weeks if I don't take the shot.
Right, right. That's happening. And the I talked to Jack Whitfield, the Senate chair, the other day, and we were in a public forum, and I asked him about the vaccine passport ban and bill, and he tried to make it sound like, well, it's good for 80 or 90% of Iowans. We just didn't want people to have to show up at this pub and have to show their vaccine passport. And I said, no, it's not really good for 80 or 90% of Iowans. It's maybe good for 10% of Iowans. What it does is if your company applies for government or Iowa funding or relies on contracts for Iowa government contracts, then it could lose the ability to do that if they had those kind of policies. But that's a small percentage of businesses in Iowa. So we talked afterwards, and I said, we're getting all sorts of reports of coercion. Here's $100 if you get the vax, and you have to wear a mask if you haven't had it. Reports of businesses making people get it, and it's an EUA vaccine. It's not, or some people say you can't call it that. It's a shot, but it's an experimental or emergency use authorization only. So, and then OSHA had said that they would, businesses would be liable, but then they flip-flopped on that for damages that might be done.
Right. Unfortunately, I think everybody calling to verify, they got flooded with phone calls about it. And I think that's kind of what triggered that. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
everybody wants to verify for themselves, and I
Right,
understand that because
right.
that's always a great policy.
So
But
there's a big problem with this bill. It's going to be, we're going to have, and I think there's going to be a oversight committee being formed possibly. And
I
we're
really
going to
hope
be,
that happens.
we're going to be collecting we'll have a stack of affidavits this high by the end of the summer of people that have been discriminated against or forced into or lost their jobs for not getting to be vaxxed. And their argument is that they don't want to regulate businesses. And my reply to that is we regulate businesses all day long. I'm a business owner, and the government regulates the heck out of us.
Right.
You can't discriminate against somebody for the color of their skin or their gender identity or their anything else under the sun or their disability. So why would you be able to make them get a emergency use authorized vaccine that's not approved by the FDA?
Exactly. That train just went right off the rails.
So anyway, I mean,
I had a question on that.
Our goal is to bring awareness to the representatives and the senators, the legislators, about all the problems that are occurring because of this, and to put some pressure on them so next session they can make some changes to it.
Awesome. Now, how about everybody's all excited about this mask mandate ban that they just put into place. And I know that you were involved in a lot of that stuff as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And I know that the kids don't have to wear them at school anymore was one of the big things that everyone was so happy about.
Yeah, that was exciting. Our superintendent had sent out a brief. They call it the Bulldog Brief in Van Meter, and I think it was on a Friday, and it said something about, if people have been vaccinated, they can make the choice as to whether or not they want to wear a mask. And I was in the middle of typing an email reply to him and the school board about that being ridiculous. And and my concerns about that. And he sent another email out saying, hey, we just received, and I had already seen the letter from the Iowa Department of Public Health, the governor, and the Iowa Department of Human Services saying that, hey, we need to loosen this up and let the parents decide. That was the gist of it, based on all the data
Hmm.
and everything. Their decision was based on data. I mean, for Iowa.
Yeah.
But so we, and I think some of that response was to a gentleman at the I-35 school system tried to get his kids into school and they weren't wearing masks, and a school administrator, he he filmed it, he videoed it and posted it, and a school administrator kicked him out and called the police.
I heard about that.
And that
Ridiculous.
I was told that that was the governor's high school or alma mater or whatever you want to call it.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't think, I hallucinate, I speculate that wasn't happy about that.
I can imagine
And
not.
yeah, and her and some representatives got together and quickly created the letter to send to all superintendents and everything. And then some schools ignored it. Our school sent a letter right away. As soon as our superintendent received it, he sent a letter to all the parents and said, hey, new guidance from the governor. No more masks next week on school grounds.
Mhm.
And he immediately called me after he sent that email to the parents, and he said, hey, did you see my email? And I said, yeah, I saw it. That's fantastic. He said a great weight was lifted off his shoulders.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult to have to be.
Yeah. They changed the when to quarantine guidelines in that as well, which helped the schools because they were choosing to follow that. And, if you weren't wearing a mask and you were in contact with somebody that was diet or tested positive, you had to quarantine. So that led to a lot of unnecessary quarantines. And the new guidelines were that was optional. You could choose whether or not to quarantine if you happen to be in contact with somebody that tested positive. So that was a game changer. And that was one of the things we were fighting the whole time. So then they sent those out, and there were a lot of schools that ignored it.
Oh, yeah.
Ankeny, of course. You have the Mama Bears of Iowa fighting up there every school board meeting, Emily and Kimberly. Waukee, several other schools in the state ignored it. And so that's, I think, when they really rushed to, we're going to put this amendment on this other bill. We're going to get it passed, and we're going to say that schools, counties, and cities cannot mandate masks. And they rushed it through, and they signed it at like 12:30 a.m. The governor signed it. You saw all that. And so, and then there were still some schools that are still coercing kids into wearing masks. I got a message from somebody that said at their school, one of the teachers was giving the kids pops if they all wore masks. In elementary school, a Coca-Cola.
Ridiculous. I would be livid.
Yeah.
My kids aren't allowed to drink
Yeah.
pop. So,
Right.
No, that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple stories, and I've had a couple people reach out to me where they're like, my child opted to not wear the mask at school, and they were separated from the rest of the class. They sent pictures where there was plexiglass all around them and stuff.
That's ridiculous.
And they were basically treated like lepers.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got kids that have a 99.997% survival rate, and they're not a significant driver. And it's just, it's ridiculous. Kids shouldn't even be in the equation on this.
Well, and one of the members of our leadership team, her son went to school, and he started off the day wearing a mask just because the kids, we all know that kids can be horrendous with bullying. And one of the things is the kids that have decided that are wearing the masks by choice, they're bullying the kids that don't want to. Well, so his mask broke, and so he was like, he just decided, well, I'm not going to wear it. And so another kid in the class asked him, does your mom know you're not wearing a mask? And he said something to the effect of, my mom doesn't care if I wear a mask or not. And the kid responded to him, oh, your parents must be Republicans. Like,
Right.
that's how,
Oh,
that's what
wow.
this has turned into. It's turned into such a politicized subject that, I mean, ain't a single one of us a Republican, I don't think. Like, we support a lot of Republicans, but we're
Right. Right.
libertarians and independents over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for people to be saying that, like, you can't win for losing. And I feel sorry for our kids that are in the school
Yeah.
system. I really do.
Yeah, they've really been taught to fear each other
Mhm.
this year to and it's crazy. You tell the adults they don't have to wear it, and you go to an event and there's 20 people out of 200 that are wearing a mask.
Right.
So I think we get it. Some of us don't, but I think the majority. My wife went to the Drake relays, and she said that she didn't hardly see anyone. There are thousands of people,
That's
not a super
awesome.
spreader event with without them. The minute it's not mandated, sometimes we'll walk into a store when there's citywide mandates, and we'll be the only person not wearing a mask, and it makes you question, well, do most people think it's really effective or necessary? And then the minute that the mandates drop, hardly anybody's
Right.
wearing them. So that's your answer, I think.
Yep. They're being good little sheeples, do what they're told. Um, something that
Yeah.
something that I've run across up here. We have somebody who's uh, refusing to send her child to school as a result of this ban, and because apparently her child is at high risk. And I don't know these people personally. It's just somebody that I saw in our community Facebook group talking. Um, and so she said that she's not sending her child to school until masks are required again. And she's contacting the American Civil Liberties Union to file a lawsuit against our governor
Wow.
over this.
Wow.
Um, and so is that like in your like obviously we're not lawyers or anything, but is that something that you see as possibly being a viable thing that could happen?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't think so. I mean, there's really no strong evidence to support that argument, but I mean, you can sue anybody for anything in this country, so I'm sure it'll get sorted out. I think we have to be careful about divisiveness. When somebody, we have friends and family that are in that, I guess, camp of really believing all the propaganda and what they hear and thinking they're doing the right thing
Right.
and masking all the time and hand sanitizing all the time and social distancing and all those things because that's what they see all the time. They're
Right.
watching TV, and when you're watching TV, you within a minute you slip into the alpha waves of your brain, and it's a very suggestible state.
Right.
And people that have been watching that all year, and even though the real science doesn't support it, it's become a religious dogma. I mean, it's just something they
Yeah.
believe, and a lot of folks that are of those opinions believe they're doing the right thing and
Right.
believe they're
And
so.
one of the things
I
that
don't love the term sheeple, and I want to try to bring people together somehow, and even if it's just saying I want to understand the other side a little better, because I think understanding is what brings folks together. And even if you understand that there's nothing you can do to sway the opinion, at least you understand that they're all our brothers and sisters. They're
right.
all our,
One
that doesn't mean the problem I have in people that, a lot of people I know who think, oh, this is ridiculous to put a cloth over my mouth to block the spread of a virus, but they still wear them. They wear them so they don't make the 10% or the 20% feel uncomfortable,
Hmm.
or they don't want to have a confrontation or cause a problem. And I don't subscribe to that. I don't believe that that's the way to create change, but I can understand why they're doing it.
Right. Well, one of the things that we have always taught here with us, we cover such a wide variety of topics, but with what we do, we reach a lot of different walks of life. And one of the things that we have always taught is with health freedom, freedom doesn't mean that it's our way or the highway. Like there
Right.
are different levels, and like, so it means the freedom to choose. Um,
Right.
with anything, and especially with the vaccine issue being such a divisive, oh, child, sorry. Um, with the vaccine issue being such a divisive issue, um, you know, you can't be militantly for or against. Like, if I want the freedom to not have to vaccinate my child, if I want the freedom to not have to wear a mask, I have to give you the freedom to choose to do that. It's
Right.
give and take. That's the whole thing about freedom. It's the freedom to choose.
Exactly. And if the shot works, then they shouldn't be concerned about it.
Exactly.
If they really have faith in their science or whatever they believe is science or being presented to as science, when it's really just a poster board with 3 checks and marks on it that you need to more analytically scrutinize, then that should be okay. And I agree. I mean, for freedom of choice is very important. What happened to my body, my choice, right?
Right.
Um, so freedom of choice isn't infringing upon somebody else's rights. It's just making sure everybody has the right to choose.
Yep.
And that's really what we're about, is the right to choose. And it's the right for someone that wants to get a shot to choose and someone that doesn't. And there should be some sort of informed consent,
Oh, definitely.
I mean, people need to be aware of the VAERS data and what's going on with this. I don't know how much you can actually talk about it, but without
We can
having
talk about
problems
everything.
with censorship, but
Yeah.
it's
We're gonna
people.
get censored no matter what. We have another. So I had told you that this will get streamed on Facebook, and I'll put it on YouTube. I forgot to mention that we have another platform that we put all of our videos on. Well, I'm working on getting them all on there. It is a Iowa-owned web video sharing platform called Viewies,
Okay.
VIEWYS.com.
Okay.
And so there is no censorship there. We've actually had the guy who, Michael Elliott is the guy who created that platform, and he's been on our show before. So we don't really worry too much about censorship because we have our videos everywhere. It'll end up on our website, and like,
Okay.
yeah, not concerned.
That makes sense. I'm always a little bit concerned. Freedom Over Fear, Unmasked Children, I helped them create their banner, and I wasn't involved in it. They had me on there as an admin. I wasn't involved really at all in adminning the group, but they had 10,000 members and then were removed.
Oh yeah,
And so that's really difficult. I mean, they're already back up to a couple thousand members in their new group, but it's it's almost like, and we had a notice about some people posting things and kind of threats from Facebook, and so it's always a concern about, well, what should we allow to be posted, um, because you'd hate for your whole platform to be removed.
right. And that's not ever a goal, but I guess my whole thing is I'm not gonna let them shut me up.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
we regularly have everybody check in with their email addresses and stuff, and I keep a running list of email addresses so that if we do get shut down, I can contact all of our people. One of the
That's
things with
something we're
our group
planning
is,
on doing as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, we have 2 different ways of doing it. We have a post in there where you can add your email on, but then one of the requisites of being a member of our Facebook group is you have to be a member of our organization. So you have to go to our website and fill out an application.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And with that, you provide us with your phone number and your address, and your email address. And we have multiple reasons for that. Number one is if you're a troll and you're only here to cause problems, you're not going to want to give us that information.
Right.
So right out the gate, that knocks a lot of people out, because if you're not willing to give us that, then I'm going to assume that you're only here to cause problems.
Right. Right.
Number two, there went my mouse.
I think your assistant is causing problems there.
Yes. But number two is so that if something were to happen to the Facebook platform, we can contact everybody.
That's
And
fantastic.
we have multiple ways. We can email you. If it goes to your spam filter, we can text you. We can send you a letter in the mail.
When we're done with the interview, I would love to talk to you more about that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I received a message the other day from a member, and it said, "Hi, Oliver. I don't believe we have ever met, but it looks like you are doing a ton of work trying to keep our freedom, and I thank you. I'm trying hard to keep up and do what I can, but it's been hard working and keeping up with everything. I'm terrified we are going to lose our freedoms. This all upsets me so much." And my reply to that is, don't be terrified or upset. The most important freedom is inner peace, and no one can take that away from you. And I think people are, they're getting so stressed out about all this insanity. And I do want to remind everyone that, the first freedom is inner peace, and that's something that we carry with us wherever we go and within any situation. We're born with it. It's God given. Nobody can take it away. Um, the only way it goes is when we get caught up and forget what's important.
Right.
So
It's very important to take that time, because I know even myself knowing these things, sometimes, I'll sit here and I'll get on a kick. I'll start watching some different things that are going on, catching up on things. And next thing you know, I'm like, okay, I'm just never leaving my house again. But then, you got to step back and let the rational mind take back over. And
you have to step back and realize that kids are going to play,
right.
People are going to laugh. We're going to find ways to get through it no matter what. My mom was born during the Depression, and her family lived in a boxcar for a time.
Oh my goodness.
We're homeless, and kids laughed, kids played, parents sat around and played whatever instrument or whatever they could get. And we just have to proceed with joy and with inner peace and bring that to our battle. We can be firm and have inner peace. We can say, no, we're not going to allow that and have inner peace. We can congregate and bring thousands and say, hey, we want this to change, yet still from a place of peace,
Right.
So one doesn't have to equal the other. Creating change doesn't have to be done with anger.
Right. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And that's kind of my book, The Way, A Small Book of Wisdom, which hopefully, you'll pick up a copy. It's about achieving that inner peace. It's about mindfulness, love, connection, compassion, gratitude, forgiveness, all the greatest parts of all the teachings of the religions of the world. I mean, when you look at any religion, the core teachings, there's this underlying message of peace and love and kindness.
Let's take a second and expound on mindfulness. So I ran group homes for 20 years, and with some of our mental health patients, mindfulness was something that we really would use as part of dialectical behavioral therapy and whatnot. And, so can you kind of expound on mindfulness? It's a very useful tool for anyone to use.
Mindfulness, I imagine you have a lot of members that are Christian, right?
Yes.
So Christ said, no man who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. No man that puts his hands to the plow, working, doing what you're doing, and looks back to the past is fit for the kingdom of heaven. He also said, take no thought for the morrow will take thought for the things of itself. So being concerned with the future, worrying about the past, those take us out of the present moment.
Hmm.
The present moment is the only reality that exists. Everything else is in the mind. So when we bring our attention back to our body, what we're doing, um, our breath, the breath is a strong key to bringing yourself back to the present moment. You bring your full awareness and your full presence to any situation or any um, meeting or connection or activity, whether it's doing the dishes or washing your car or sweeping your floor or folding your clothes. So it's important that we are present and our mind's not somewhere else, and that's the really mindfulness is just being present in what you're doing and not letting your mind wander everywhere and
Hmm.
have 10,000 other things going on.
Yes.
That makes sense.
It to me it makes perfect sense. But
Yeah.
I taught mindfulness for a very long time. Um,
Right.
so
So, when you're with your friend at coffee and they're trying to, you know, get your advice and tell you about their day, then you're with your friend at coffee and you practice deep listening. You focus on your breath a little bit, bring your thoughts in and actually listen, and maybe even to the gaps between the breaths or between the words. You listen to everything.
so sorry, my mindfulness isn't
And
going so well at the
funny you
moment.
said that about group homes. That's okay. Ella is like the mind, or Ayla,
Yeah.
like the monkey mind.
Yes. She's
So
got down.
I was a group home manager for a few years when I was young, and I really enjoyed it. I worked with three guys that had Down syndrome and one guy that had a mental disability, and
Mhm.
it was really those guys were some of the best friends I ever
Oh
had.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
it's awesome. When I went on maternity leave for having my last for having Ayla, uh, I never went back to work. I am now a stay-at-home mom, and I do obviously mom full time, but I also do this. So I miss it a lot. I miss
Yeah.
it so much. I never thought that I would really miss it that much, but I mean, I don't miss the stress of being in charge and having to work a bazillion hours a week, but I miss my people. I've
Yeah.
ran into them a couple times, and everybody, it's been almost 2 years since I've worked, and they still remember me, and like I still
Yeah.
get the big hugs and whatnot, and
Oh
I love
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
There's a simplicity and a joy to working with people who have those challenges that, you know, there's not, you kind of get what you see and they tell you what they
Yeah.
mean, and
Yep.
it's refreshing. It's
It is.
joyous. It's almost like spending time with a monk or something. you
Right.
know,
I never
and
thought about it like that.
yeah, well, and back to mindfulness. I mean, when we are mindful and we're present, it's like a calm lake or a calm water. When
Mhm.
we are not mindful and we are worried about the past or worried about the future or thinking about something someone said to us or something that might happen with legislation even or with our rights, the 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 lake is choppy and disturbed, and then we have emotions, which are our body's reaction to those thoughts and that choppiness. So mindfulness brings about inner peace and it allows us to move forward with purpose
Right.
and presence.
And um, just to kind of relate it, because we do have a very large Christian base, not like we do have other religions that follow us, but a large Christian base. For someone who might be worried that that sounds a little new agey, just remember that the Bible, Jesus was known for always saying, "Fear not, fear not, fear not." So it's
Right.
kind of the same
I
premise.
mean, I mean, Christ said the kingdom of God is within you. within you, not somewhere else. The Pharisees asked him where it was. He said, it's not here, it's not there, it's not over there. The kingdom of God is within you. We can't get there through striving and fighting and whatever else. We get there through being present in inner peace. And he taught that. I mean, it's in the Sermon on the Mount. If you read it with that eye and that understanding, I mean, if you're a Christian, I say make Christ your personal friend. I mean, talk to him every day, read his teachings and follow him. Beyond going to church on Sundays, go to church every day. Every moment of our lives is a part of our spiritual journey.
Right.
Every interaction we have with somebody is a part of our spiritual journey.
Exactly. And it's very important. But
Yeah.
I could go on about that for hours.
Yeah.
Here in a minute.
For sure. That's the most important thing.
So,
everything else will be added unto you. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and everything else will be added unto you.
That's right. So there was a question that I had written down to ask you that I had missed, and so that is, what do you have planned for the future for Iowans for Freedom?
We are going to, we'll do some events, and we're going to start having meetings and in-person meetings, and we will be forming kind of with some other groups. Sonia and I and some other groups are going to form kind of a coalition or community with the heads of all the other groups. And that will just be something that, we can send out the bat signal or whatever you want to call it and say, hey, we need help on this bill. We're going to have this event to bring awareness to this legislation that either needs to not pass or that we need to create. And that was one of my visions early on, was we have all these awesome groups that fill their niches and have their communities and are all freedom loving people. If we can bring them together on the big things, that's what one of our hopes is.
And that's very important, and I'm so glad that people are realizing that. For years, I'm trying to think of a polite way or a tactful way to say this. I've noticed over time that people get involved, and it's, yes, my precious girl. It's people get involved in it. It's all about the glory of so and so, and
oh yeah.
And we have that in organizations as well, and it happens all over, not just in Iowa. And so to see people that are wanting to come together and work together, that's just so exciting to me, because there's so much stuff that I have to offer, but I don't have time to devote to, but I can help out with something, and vice versa. And it's just cool. Like, we've worked with Sonia for years. We love Sonia to death.
She's awesome. I love Sonia.
And so just to hear that from people, I really like hearing that, because we're so happy to help out where we can, and come together when needed, and just do what needs to be done. It's about Iowa. It's about the people. It's about getting the job done. It doesn't matter. Like, one of our things that when we started up, we've been around for a long time under multiple names, because I'm horrible at naming organizations. We're not even go through our past names. But
right. Yeah, I get it. You start because there's a need, and then you kind of work into what your organization is going to be like.
Right. But we didn't want to have it be an individual thing. We wanted to build up our organization because we want to pass it on to the next generation. My hope and dream is that my kids will take over someday, or one of our other leadership team members, that our kids are going to come together and they're going to carry on the cost of all this.
Right.
So it's never, for us, it's not about us. It's about the cause. It's about a legacy, and just paving the way so that the next generation can carry on.
There's a book called Good to Great, and I can't remember the author's name. It's on my bookshelf, but they studied the greatest organizations in the world and the ones that empowered their members and team to really run it, and they didn't really have, this is the figurehead, this is the person doing all the stuff. Those were the most successful and had the greatest longevity, were
That's
the leaders that really empowered the team to be autonomous from them, kind of.
yeah,
So I think
that's
it's important for an organization to do that. I mean, it's, you know, it's great to have a spokesperson or two or three or whatever, but the organization needs to run in such a way that it can run without whoever's, you know, kind of at the head.
right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, we really want to work on that over this year, is really uniting everybody,
Mm,
yet celebrating and supporting everybody in their individuality in their groups as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah, that's great. And did you say you're in Bettendorf?
I am in Waukee, actually Clive. We live in
Okay.
Clive, but we're right on the edge
I
of
don't know why I
Waukee.
thought you said something to do with the name of the school. Maybe
Ankeny was one of the schools that I know they've struggled with. Kimberly and Emily, and they've been on the national stage. They had an interview with General Flynn the other day, and
that's cool.
I'm gonna actually have a Zoom call with them later today. But um, yeah, no, I'm in our kids open enroll though, so they go to a smaller school. But
Okay. Yeah, my kids go to private school, so
yeah,
they
yeah,
actually go to a homeschool co-op, so we don't have to
that's
worry about a
awesome.
lot of this. Um,
Yeah. I think we'll see a lot more of that now.
yeah, definitely.
That's going to be an explosion. People wanting to get their kids out of the public school
Oh
system.
yeah, we pulled our kids. Let's see, my my sixth grader went to public school for preschool, and that was her first and last year in public school. Um, and then they've gone to private ever since.
Yeah,
So,
I get it. I get it. So that's where we're at, I think.
yep. So awesome. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of great things planned, and we hope to be involved as much as
For
possible.
sure. Yeah.
So, well,
Yeah. Thanks for reaching out to me. I
no
appreciate it.
problem. And as things go on, we'll have you back on. We like to get updates and stuff about things that are going
Right.
on here in the state and keep everybody up to date on what's going on. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight. And if you are watching this on Facebook, please make sure you share it, put some comments, help the algorithms to get messed up so that more people will view this. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're watching on any of the other platforms, Viewies, or whatever you happen to be watching on, please make sure you like the video, share it out, so that we get as much and the information out to as many people as possible. We will see you guys next week for another Health Freedom Iowa Live. And I hope you guys have a great week.